Welcome and thanks for joining today's webinar on introducing SAP IBP and the S&OP process. In today's webinar, we're going to introduce IBP, discuss different IBP modules, as well as provide an overview of the S&OP process off of IBP. Our webinar is also going to include a short S&OP system demonstration. Now, before we start, I wanted to go ahead and introduce today's speaker, which is Srini Krundru. Srini is a supply chain management solutions architect with over 20 years of experience in leading and managing SAP supply chain solutions. Some of the industries that he has worked in include aerospace and defense, life sciences, and high tech, as well as many others. Now, throughout his tenure, he has utilized SAP supply chain management tools and has vast experience implementing SAP planning solutions such as IBP, APO, SNC, and many others. Now on the next slide, I'm going to go over some quick housekeeping tips. So if questions come up during the webinar, please go ahead and type them in the panel as shown on the screen, as we're going to be addressing these questions at the end of the presentation. Now on to the next slide, I'd like to quickly introduce Krypt for those of you who are less familiar. So Krypt was established in 2008 and is a leading SAP consulting partner. Although we operate globally, we do consider ourselves to be a boutique consulting firm that lives by our founding principles of innovation, collaboration, and drive. Now, these principles have allowed us to complete over 800,000 SAP consulting hours in various industries. And our services focus around implementation, upgrades, and customization around various SAP solutions, including trade, transportation, warehouse, planning, and HANA. We also offer custom solutions, integration services, and work closely with SAP for ramp-up and testing. Now on to the next slide, I did want to go ahead and briefly share our thought leadership. We strive to be thought leaders in the supply chain ecosystem, and we've accomplished this by authoring books, in addition to writing blogs and white papers, which are available on our website. Moving to the next slide, this is an overview of our proprietary offerings, which complements the SAP suite. I wanted to briefly highlight Krypt Connect, which is in the middle, which is can be integrated with non-SAP ERP systems. Now, over the years, we've had the opportunity to also work with a variety of companies within the SAP supply chain space, and some of them are highlighted on our next slide. There we go, perfect. So you can see there's quite a variety of different clients that we've worked with. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Srini.
Thank you, Deb. Good morning, folks. Welcome to our webinar on SAP IBP and the S&OP process. As Deb explained, this is a typical agenda we'd like to go about today. First is introduction of the SAP IBP tool and what different modules or functions we have in IBP, followed by a detailed overview of the IBP process, and in details about the S&OP process, followed by the system demo. To start off with, where does this IBP tool stand? So SAP IBP, which is SAP Integrated Business Planning, is part of the SAP Digital Supply Chain product portfolio. It is an end-to-end supply chain business process, which basically links up your real-time data for real-time collaboration with your business partners. So if you see here, there are many other business functions we have, like plan, produce, and respond, and how well they are connected to our business partners. This is a solution which fits into the SAP supply chain product portfolio. In going into details about it, the SAP Integrated Business Planning, we don't definitely say the modules, but there are different functions of IBP. And typically, these are the 5 major functions of IBP. The first and the foremost, which is very critical for the other tools, because this is one of the tools that the other SAP products were lagging. So SAP introduced this first module called as the IBP for Sales and Operations Planning. It is a module used to integrate all the supply chaining techniques like planning, inventory, response, and supply. And it is supported by the supply chain control tower, which basically is an end-to-end visibility for your alerts, analyticals, and of course, they're adding more collaboration to it. As we said, S&OP integrates the demand. So if at all some people wanted to advance demanding, we have IBP for demand, which basically does the details of demand planning. We have inventory optimization, which basically can optimize your stocks across your supply chain network. And of course, the supply planning, which is basically used to optimize the requirements between locations to have an optimal supply plan. And we have another module called as a response, which is basically reacting to the market needs, followed by end-to-end integration with the other tools. So what is that the customer needs and the customer trends in this supply planning area? Typically, if you have seen, this tool is built on SAP HANA, which is basically the start of our technology, which is based in memory computing. So it is much faster than the other tools that we had. Of course, it has very friendly real-time and monitoring alerts. So this alert system, what you're seeing is a screenshot of IBPs. So it has a much real-time and user-friendly alerting module. Of course, it uses to integrate all our supply chain across. So it's a tool we use to integrate all our supply chains. And if people are interested in doing a social collaboration, it can be integrated to SAP Jam tool, which basically gives us a collaboration piece. In addition to that, IBP is very capable of doing what-if scenarios on the fly. So it's very real-time, unlike the other tools like SAP. It uses smart algorithms, basically including machine learning. So basically, SAP is developing much more time into these algorithms. And of course, the most thing is the simplification of the web UI. I have a detailed slide next which can talk about it. So, and what is that SAP is doing to invest in this tool? Mostly they're working on the usability of it. So they're coming up with more automations, more exception handling process. As this being a cloud, they want to optimize it much as possible so it's user-friendly for people to use. They are spending a lot of new algorithms. The most of the research is done in introducing new algorithms, simplifying of the process that we have. SAP introduced every 3 months a new version. You can see that it introduced new algorithms, new functionalities. Of course, it is built on cloud. So they are targeting for scalability and performance. It has this added security. And of course, they're planning to integrate the other networks like Ariba or any other business networks we have as the enhancement for the user experience. You see, unlike the other SAP products that we had, this has two types of user experience. One is called as a web UI. So it uses mostly like the Fiori apps. You'll see in the demo. So basically, that's the one type of users who will be using the Fiori web apps to launch different applications. And application is nothing but like a small app, and it is related to a role. And the other end is most of the planners will be using an Excel sheet to basically do their things. As we know that how easy it is to Excel to do your calculation figures. So that's the user experience is totally different from the other tools that we had. So, and how this IBP integrates with the other products of SAP. As we all know that we may have an SAP S4 environment or an APO environment. This SAP has given us flexible roadmaps to basically integrate your existing solution. It can be APO, ECC, or APO or BPCs, and still can integrate to SAP IBP, which is basically the cloud version. You can pick and choose the process that you want to implement. Doesn't mean that you have to implement all or every function. We can pick and choose what you really want to work in IBP based upon your capabilities and the need. That's how flexible it is. In addition to that, the other integration pieces that we have is it is integrated to S/4HANA. It uses something called as Cloud Platform Integration for communication. If you see here, there is a real-time communication between APO and HANA, and IBP, and of course S4. But if you use other organizations, other tools like warehouse management and transportation, through S4 or ECC, we can always link them up and have an integrated process from end to end. So with this, let's jump into the next topic, which I have is a detailed overview of the sales and operations planning. Now, as I explained, sales and operations planning has many modules. In that, sales and operations planning is one. In sales and operations planning, what is the main actions that we have in sales and operations planning? Basically, it is an integrated approach involving many different functions of an organization. Say that you have a strategic planning team, which is basically responsible for planning what is the annual plans that you're going to achieve. So maybe it's an exercise. It's driven from the management down to say, hey, this is the management approach that we want to take in a plan. Similarly, that plan may be supported with your financial input, saying that what plans do I get? Do I make profitability? Such inputs will be flying in from our financial planning methods. In addition to that, we may have a sales for automation process where they pump in our promotions, they may have a sales uplift. So different parameters may be added to the process here. And of course, at the end, all these have to be optimized to one way where we can give our inputs to the operational team to give them marching directions for the next specific module or next maybe process. So a module which ties all these different types of industries or of business teams into one, but still governs to the final motto of the organization is the sales and operations planning, which SAP didn't have one perfect tool for this. We had a lot of tools like APO, BPS, SNC, and of course regular, but this tool is the one which integrates all of them together. So as I explained, so if you take the end-to-end process of a S&OP process, say that we may start off with a sales and marketing forecast. Basically, you're trying to forecast from your history, which basically you may take the inputs from sales and marketing, which basically forms your consensus demand planning or the unconstrained demand plan, which takes the inputs of how much stocks you have or how much other properties you need, like the service levels you want to maintain. And then we may have to bump against our constraints that we have, which may be a material constraint or a supply constraint, may supplier's capacity constraint or capacity constraint by itself. And doing all this process, we still want to make sure that we are marching against the management direction. Basically, are we making enough revenue or profit? And what is the net impact of our revenue and profit if we go with this path? And of course, giving all the tools like what if scenarios and planning and real-time scenarios available for the executive team to decide and basically take a final direction on how this team. So all these things are different functions of the S&OP process. So these processes are the ones which govern. So to meet those processes, IBP typically has the planning environment. Of course, it has the analyticals, it has KPIs, real time. It can be built. It has the JAM integration. I told you it is a real-time collaboration used to, if at all you want to do social collaboration within your organizations for the tasks and things like that. It is available. And of course, it has a very powerful scenario planning and simulation process. I'll show you in a demo. So it's a very powerful on the fly. You can do scenarios and simulations. And of course, it has versions, which we can do a detailed planning if needed. And the system by default comes with the advanced analytical. So any data that you see in the system can be reported, unlike we don't need a custom reports and all. So they are readily available. It's a small training experience that we need for people to get hands-on analysis. So in this whole S&OP process, the main problem, one of the major problems that the other tools did not address was can plan across the organization. Sometimes you may have many teams, many people, many different steps and execution things, or you may have a global industry, which is very hard to coordinate. So this tool gives you the capability of bringing them together and trying to help in achieving your final goals for using your ad hoc collaborations, emails, sending out Excel, and of course, making the planning decisions easier and documenting any constraints that we have and different ways of overcoming the constraints by simulation or understanding your decision. So all those put together, the whole aim of the supply S&OP process is to create an optimal business plan, basically to drive revenue growth and increase the market share. Typical. That's the tool will help us to do it. Of course, it can balance between our supply and demand, and of course, see how our financial targets can be done. As the tool is should give you the leverage of interacting faster to the needs. With this, the power tool I told you is about the supply chain control tower, which is basically analytical. So this has very powerful capabilities to report on the fly. I have a quick example I can show you on how this works. So these are the different details about the S&OP. The supply chain control tower, it's a little name, but it has many functions in it. It has alerts, it has analyticals, it has dashboards, it has connectivity. So I'll touch upon which are related to the S&OP, which are basically your alerts and dashboards and analyticals needed. So with this, I'll be jumping on to the demo. So let me say we are trying to explain you. I took a simple supply chain. If you see on the right, I have customers and say they are fulfilled by 3 different DCs, and one in the east and one in the south and one in the west coast. And say that we may have a manufacturing location or locations, and of course I may have a couple of more than suppliers who are supplying products. The one you're seeing is like an analytical report of SNC. So I just put a pictorial way, so we can graph it in such a way we can see where each product is going on. So with this, let me jump on to the demo. So first, let me go on to this. This is an IBP. It's on the cloud. So obviously I'm using my on the cloud version. Each one, these are called as tiles or apps, you can say, these apps. So you see these are different roles, the standard IBP roles, and you see these called as the apps. So first, let me take to this app. So this is called as maintaining your, manage your process. So this is like a template. You create your templates. This is nothing but say that it's like one set of it and you keep on using it. As I explained in the whole S&OP process, typically if we take the whole S&OP process, if you divide them, it may be broadly classified into demand review, supplier review, or pre-executed review, and a final executed review. So there may be 4 different major milestones in the whole process. And if you take the details of the demand planning, we may have different steps. For example, first step may be to correct the sales historical data. Second is run the statistical forecasting. Then the sales team reviews it. The marketing team reviews it. And then, of course, we end up into consensus demand. Similarly, if you look for the supply, we may have different tasks in it. Like first, we need to collect how much supply data we have, means how much stocks we have, how much vendor capacity we have. We can review the consensus demand. If at all we have stock targets, we can review them or correct them. Of course, we can perform the capacity evaluation and generate a preliminary supply plan, which can be used by the executive team to make a decision. So you see, these are n number of things and n number of tasks to be performed in the whole process. This is just outlining what to be done and who is responsible and when they can do it. So this is how you define them. But how do you use them? Say that you define them on your needs, so monthly, quarterly, whatever it may be. And then when the time comes and you see, we call that as a process. We create a process for it. Right now you see here, I have a process I created for the month of June for the demo purposes. And if you see here, I started, if you can see as soon as I said the demand is in process, if you look at this is the process like going on. If you see here, this is still in process, is not yet completed. So this have different tasks. We can monitor them. It has a lot of functionality and usage. If at all you use jam integration, we can assign this to individual people. You can, as soon as the people complete the step, this automatically gets updated. And finally, you can see that the percentage of completion gets updated if at all you have process. Or else you can, if you don't use jam, we can come back in here and complete. So say that now I use demand, so I complete the demand process. You can see that the next step goes on like that. There are no hard and fast rules. This is just a tool used to document all your end-to-end process and used by the whole S&OP team to monitor the whole process end-to-end. So as I explained in the demand process, let me go quickly to show the other web UI for it. So for example, I'm in an Excel view. I logged into IBP. IBP, it is just standard Excel, but with installation of IBP add-on, you get this new ribbon called as IBP, which basically you're logging on. No data is stored in Excel, but as soon as you log on, that means you are making a connect to IBP cloud version. It is populating the data here. So if you see here, I can quickly refresh the data. It is loading the data. So I'm in the history cleansing tab. So basically you may have actual history and you're going to adjust it, say that in this period. So I have about 36 months of history. So I can go to the current month and see that, hey, this is missing. I can correct my history. That is how manually I'm correcting it. But we have other outliner corrections where system can automatically correct them, but I'm just showing you a manual way. So when I save it, this is how basically the data is stored back, and you have a lot of additional capabilities. So like you can do a simulation. I can do a simulation. I can do my forecasting technique. Hey, I'm running my without saving. I'm running my forecasting, which is basically the next step in the whole process of statistical forecasting. If you see here, you got the data, you're cleansing it or cleaning it up, and then you're writing the statistical forecasting. And basically, the system basically runs statistical forecasting, and you should be able to see the results and look at it. And still, it's not yet saved because you're running in the simulation mode. In addition to the statistical forecasting, I said as additional inputs, but nothing but when we're talking about the additional inputs, what it means is that we're having additional inputs from sales department, from the marketing departments to basically continue on the process. You see here the one that we had on the task. So we may have corrected, and then sales team goes on, and finally you end up with the consensus plan. So that is how the demand task will be performed. Let's see what's the next step that we have. So the next step we have is a supply review. So if you see here on the task of the supply review, I think hope you can. So if I'm doing on the supply review, if I look at my task, the next is you collect the consensus, forecast, and evaluation results on this. So I'll quickly go into the supply plan. So if you see here in the supply plan, it's again another Excel view, but I'm just saved as a different format. The input to this is your consensus demand quantity, and here we can run a planning process. We typically have heuristics. We can run supply propagation, and you can run an optimizer if you want to use cost-based optimization process. I say that you can run your optimization. It basically, so it takes, and we can monitor it here, everything from the status. So yep, yeah, that's finished. And then you can see here the optimization, basically what it does, the supply network is, you take the demand and basically it spits out different requirements. For example, it tells you how much we need to ship it from a DC to a customer. It tells you what may be the capacity of, what may be the capacity at each plant. Say I set up the data in such a way that there is some overcapacity. In such cases, what happens is, based upon this overcapacity, we can design custom alerts to pop up here. That way, we are saying that this is an overcapacity and you need to take action on it. The system also predicts what are the total components, means sub-assemblies and raw materials needed to be manufactured. And it can tell you the procurement plan. It tells you how much raw material or how much semi-finished products you're buying it from suppliers, and it gives you a list of them. So the supply planning, the input is your consensus demand, which basically gives you your transportation plan, production plan. It gives you your external receipts plan, which is procurement plan, and it gives you the capabilities to measure your capacity. And we can correct the capacity. We can always simulate it and document different processes. So all these inputs are used in your supply chain process, if you see the supply chain process. But when you go to the next steps after this, okay, now I'm here, I have my data there, but how will I use it? How will I use this information? So the most important thing is there are many KPIs needed to take an action on this. So what we can do is we can use IBP's analytical or a dashboards concept, which is part of the control tower. I set up something quick for the demo. So we can say that we can define as many demos dashboards we want. So I set up something for this dashboard. You click on it. The dashboard is nothing but a combination of different functions of KPIs and alerts, and we can be used for the process. So we can So its system is loading up the thing. If you see here, the process that we defined, it can document here what is happening to the process. It says demand is in review, completed, status, and you can see different process for it. In addition to that, if you scroll down, we can attach as many reports we want. See here, this is the visualization chart that we did, and see here, this is the capacity overall alert that we defined. Like that, we defined any any standard analyticals or reports can be done. For example, if I can go to the alert by itself, this is not like a customization, this is like a training. We can train the individual users normally, and this is a very interactive one. It can drop down to the next levels, it can show you. And the other option is when you can, from here, if you want to tell someone, you can click on Excel. That means it's nothing but it's loading this data. For example, in this, it says I have some total alerts. The system is giving you alerts, but if you want some planner to take an action, you can click on the, basically what it does is it takes the data and it loads on into a new Excel. If you see here, it shows you only the delta. So these are the products that have an issue. So now you can send it to a particular planner to go and take care of these, because these are having capacity issues which are more than needed. So his job is to make sure that the capacity or the quantity is reduced, so which basically gives a feedback to the sales and operations plan. So if you see here, the whole thing is integrated using different analyticals of IBP. So with this, if I like to summarize it, in the whole demo, what we went through is with the web UI demonstration of the S&OP process modeling first, and then we went through the different steps in the S&OP process. Of course, we went and executed how to execute and modify any planning data in Excel, and how to execute the demand planning process, and of course the supply planning, and finally review the alerts analyticals used for the KPIs. So this is like a quick demo on the IBP process. With this, I'll open up to see if you have any questions. I know that it's a very quick half-hour demo. We have many things coming up.
Yeah, so, perfect. Thanks, Judy. Yeah, we did have a couple that actually came in, so which is always great. So one that came in, someone said, can we have only one process for S&OP? You want to go ahead?
No, actually, yeah. So I just demoed you as one process. So, but based upon the size of the industry and the number of things we monitored, different teams can have different S&OP process molded, and we can have a network of process also to have a global S&OP. Like we may have organizations across the globe, so each one may have different process by themselves, but they can be integrated to one to basically govern the whole S&OP process across the globe. So basically, it's not one you can define. It's very flexible as and how you want it.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Another one someone wanted to know is JAM integration required for S&OP?
Oh yeah, no. Means S&O, there's a drawbacks and advantage and disadvantage. I showed you a process where it is not integrated with JAM, but the other advantage you get with integration with JAM is right now you saw there are about 5 steps in the process. When you have the 5th step, right now there is no electronic process to communicate from process 5 to 6. But if you use JAM integration, it's a collaborated process inside your network. So obviously you can communicate to the person, he can complete a task that gets automatic. So all those automation process is an additional advantage to the process, but it doesn't need to be that JAM has to be there. So the reason for that, I'm just trying to explain detail is JAM is a different licensing by IBP, so that's the reason. Some people already have JAM. So if they have JAM, we can integrate it. If not, we can still use the process without JAM.
Okay, perfect. And due to time, obviously we want to respect everyone's time. We did have one other question. We'll include that. We're going to be sending out the presentation and recording via email, so you guys will want to go ahead and watch for that email. But we'll include that one additional question that came up regarding modifying analytics, so everyone can have that. But with that, again, out of respect for everyone's time, we did want to thank you for attending today's webinar. And if you have any questions, certainly feel free to follow up, because we're happy to help. And so with that, it will conclude our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for that.